It's time for Breaking Chains with the P31 Ladies Night, where we will have open dialogue with our women on issues of personal, family, and more. It's Breaking Chains with the P31 Women on YAT Radio.
She is off mute. What's this number?
Oh, the 813 area code.
404. They're just scanning.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Breaking Chains, Proverbs 31 Ladies Night. I am your host, Dr. LaTarsha Holden. We have a very amazing show tonight, a show that's dealing with a very sensitive but critical topic. We will be discussing mental health. I just found out, seen a meme, a poster flyer that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So God knows what he's doing for us to kick off this month of May with our mental health show. And, it's funny because I was reading that currently today's society often doesn't see the forest for the trees when it comes to deciphering mental health myths and from real facts. In fact, the stigmas that surround mental illness hinder our understanding about many of the mental disorders that are prevalent today, such as depression, anxiety, mood disorders, and bipolar, just to name a few. And so I got an awesome guest that will be joining us here in a second to help us understand any myths that might be out there of mental illness, maybe things we grew up with thinking what mental illness is. I remember growing up, we used to always think that someone with a mental illness was the crazy guy that was walking down the street talking to himself. So we're going to diffuse some of those myths on today with my guest, Monica Douglas Davis. And let me just give a little background on Monica, Ms. Davis, and so we can know why I chose her to come on. We want somebody with some experience behind her name. This subject is very just critical, and so I'm just excited that Ms. Davis has taken the time out of her busy schedule to be here with us. So Monica Douglas Davis has an associate's license in professional counseling. She obtained a MA in education from Concordia University and a second MA in professional counseling from RBC University. She was a public school teacher for 11 years. She has worked in several types of schools, including inner-city Chicago schools, a language academy, a classical school, and a suburban school in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Monica has also worked as a mental health counselor in the state of Georgia. She's also created curriculums for several children and adolescent groups, and she has managed a behavior management game. She spent time working in conjunction with the Gwinnett County Juvenile Justice System, and she has volunteered for several organizations working with children and families. Let's give a warm welcome to Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis, are you there?
I am.
Awesome. This show has been very much anticipated by me. We've seen a lot in the media over the last year concerning this topic. Even down now, we have little kids, deciding, to take their life over being bullying and just the pain they might be enduring at home and just certain things that they're going through. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide to go in this direction to be a mental health advocate.
Well, first, Dr. LaTarsha, thank you so much for having me on your show. It is a privilege and an honor to talk about it. And as you said, this is National Mental Health Awareness Month, so it's very timely. So I appreciate this opportunity to share with the listeners out there a little bit about mental health. Well, my story, we'll make it brief here. One won't be on here too long. But I think that my journey, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, family of 8 children, second oldest and the first girl, and growing up in the inner city. And as we all know about Chicago right now, that's, murder capital of the United States. Well, back when I grew up, in high school, it was the same. Actually, it was worse. They had a lot of murders and things back then. And I went to school, graduated from Whitney Young High School, which is a very excellent high school, magnet high school. Went on to college to get my degree in psychology. It's ironic because I wanted to be a nurse, and so I started out nursing, and then I did some little volunteer stuff at a hospital, and I just kind of gravitated to counseling. I really found that I enjoyed talking to the patients that I was kind of working with. The doctors and nurses were taking care of their medical needs, but there was no one there that was really helping them emotionally. And so a lot of times people just wanted someone to sit down and listen to them, to hear their pain, to hear their sorrow, to hear their anxiety, to comfort them in their time of loss or grief or whatever was going on in their lives. And so I said, ooh, I like that. So I changed from nursing to psychology, and I got a degree in psychology. Ironically, though, I started out as a teacher. I did that for 11 years. I don't know what happened. It's just I went in that direction. I decided I wanted to teach. So I did that for 11 years. I loved it, really enjoyed the children, really enjoyed the experience, but I kind of got tired of, which is going on now, all these standardized testing, and pretty much that was the determinant of your value as a child, and I totally am against that. I don't believe that you should take one test, whatever state you're in, and now this test decides whether you graduate or not. So I kind of was like, oh, no, I don't like that. I don't like all the paperwork. So my passion came back. I always help people. My parents taught us to be givers and servants of others. And so I love my parents, Willie and Mildred Douglas, who just always have been examples of servants, like the Bible says, about it says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was, in prison, you visited me. When I was sick, that's my parents. They actually did those things. And so when you train your children that way, whether they want to or not, we'll kind of go that way. So it was already in me. It was in the DNA, so I don't think I had, a whole lot.
They just kept ruling you.
You know what? They just kept showing me. So I just did that, so I went ahead back to school and got another master's and got it in counseling, got out of education because, again, I really love working with children and families. That's my thing. I'm the professional parenting practitioner. That's my title accolade that I claim because it starts from the foundation of a child, and as you mentioned already, Dr. Holden, so many children are suicidal or have committed suicide. People have been bullying since the beginning of time, but the death rate of suicide, they have actually been, ending their lives. The social media, of course, we didn't have that growing up, but, in the day of today, back then we had words, you say something, we say, sticks and stones, break bones, you say that, even though that's not true. Words do hurt. And unfortunately, a lot of young people are choosing to make wrong choices, and they don't understand the implications and that it could cost someone their life. And so that's kind of my little story. And, I just love being out trying to educate people about mental health awareness, about signs and symptoms, and just about how to get some resolutions and some answers to those. So.
Well, Miss, I'm looking at you got Douglas Davis. So you recently got married, or okay?
No, I just added it on.
Okay. Can you break down? Just give us a definition, because for me, growing up here in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm born and raised here. Mental health to me growing up was always, they got that crazy man walking down the street talking to himself. It was always. It wasn't depression. It wasn't anxiety. We just thought the person who you saw, either sitting on a street corner, that's what we consider, and we was always afraid of them. We was always afraid, I guess, if that was the picture in our head. So could you give a definition of mental health or I guess, a definition so that paint a picture where we can just see a broader than probably what other people have, grew up thinking what mental health is.
Okay. Well, let me tell you what. I pulled some facts and statistics, kind of bear witness to what's going on. So let me give you some hot off the press facts here. So in the United States, we're going to talk about, these are some mental health facts. It says there's about 43.8 million adults experience mental illness in a given year. That's 1 out of 5 adults in America that are experiencing a mental illness. So even as we have listeners on this phone, there's 1 out of every 5 that has a diagnosed mental illness. And then with children, we're going to go from children ages 5 up to, from children up to age 18, 1 in 5 children will have a serious mental illness. So what does that look like? Kind of like you said, it's not the person always talking to themselves on the corner or the person everyone's afraid of. But it's simple things like you already mentioned. Someone who just feels worthless and desperate to a point that they no longer value their life. They feel that they are hopeless. That's the number one sign. Let's talk about depression. The number one sign is hopelessness. Loss of interest in things that you normally did. So if you normally were, athletic and you were in sports and all of a sudden you just lost total interest in it, if you normally were outgoing and assertive and a social person and now you're in the house and you're withdrawn and isolating yourself, and normally if you were happy and joyful and now you're sullen and solemn to yourself, if your appearance has changed and you're dressing dark or drab or maybe not using proper hygiene, those are some symptoms that something is going on a mental level with you. If you are losing appetite or increased appetite or sleep, those are some key things. People who are depressed a lot often will lose sleep or they may sleep a lot. Anytime they can lay down, they lose energy, they're fatigued, they're tired a lot, but again, overall, it's a hopelessness. And it's not just, today I'm down, tomorrow I'm up. It's a consistent time frame. And you're looking at weeks that, you may just have struggle getting out of bed every day. If you do that for 2 or 3 weeks, then that's a sign that you may need to see somebody. You need to seek someone to see if you're having some depressive symptoms. Anxiety. If you're real nervous, and, it just happened last week here in our neighborhood, and, Dr. Holden, in my neighborhood, like literally 2 miles from me, with where my office is at, where I do counseling, private practice, 10 kids were shot with BB guns right in the back. They were in the school, in the playground, kindergartners, first graders, so 5 and 6 year olds, and so now they have trauma. So mental health can also include and does include trauma. So now you have children that are seeking counseling because they're afraid that they're going to get shot at school. And it's happening over the weekend. We had, again, what did we just have yesterday? Day before, the synagogue shooting again. So it's happening every day, everywhere, somewhere, and this affects our mental health. So it affects our ability to think, to function in a productive way. So that would be a definition. When it's affecting your daily adaptive skills, then you need to really get it checked.
But you, as you know, growing up in an African-American home, counseling or talking about your feelings was not something that was, for most people, it was not something that was prompted or favored. It was always get over it. We don't talk about that stuff. And so do you feel that, just for certain cultures, it wasn't something where, it was shunned upon if you went and said you need counseling or you need to get. So where's your thoughts on that? Growing up, that's how we would have never thought, depression or like those symptoms. Do you think that's how it's been overlooked for years, where people didn't really downplay mental health because they thinking everyone had this picture of the crazy guy, the crazy lady, but never mom been in the room for a week. A dad is acting funny, then he usually, Do you think that just, as a culture in the African American families where that wasn't even thought of if something was wrong? It just, it was just pushed on the rug. We wasn't supposed to talk about how we felt.
Sure. Well, definitely it affects our ethnic group, but it affects a lot of people. It's not a matter of race, but absolutely, let me do say that. A lot of times we were told, give it to Jesus, or what happens in the house stays in the house, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of dysfunction, but dysfunction does not only happen with African Americans, of course, you know that. It happens with everyone.
Yes.
But I see clients of all different ethnicities, and a lot of times, like, this is my first time here. I'm kind of, we used to call them head shrinkers. That's what they say. Go see a head shrinker,
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I always tell people is, normally, and again, I deal a lot with families, and children. So if your
Mm-hmm.
child has the flu, you take them to the doctor. You go ahead and get Tamiflu or with some fluids or, whatever it is. If they have a cut, you take them and they get the stitches and cuts. You don't hesitate normally to do that. Now, you look at the scar and say, maybe it's going to heal up, maybe it can't. And a lot of us may have a big old scar from something that really we should have got stitches from, and we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got a big scar there, but, the body does what it does to try to heal it the best way that it can. Well, the same thing with mental illness. If we don't deal with it when we see the signs and symptoms, which I already talked about and I will be speaking more on, then what it does is it exacerbates, it gets bigger and larger, and we push things under the cover or the carpet, so to speak, and the carpet gets lumpier and lumpier and lumpier, until at some point everybody's like, what's that big old lump in the, carpet? And that's when people have those mental breakdowns. That's why people will go to vices and things because they're not dealing with their mental health. A lot of people have, we say coexisting, so that means you're an alcoholic because you're using that because you won't go see somebody for counseling because someone molested you when you were 6, or the dad wasn't in the house, or the dad abused the mom, or you. Or you were traumatized in some kind of way, or you were neglected in some kind of way, bullied, and you didn't know how to deal with it. And so I really just always tell everybody, just like we have annual checkups for your body, some of the questions, and some places are getting better at that, they do ask, kind of about the mental health. Because then once they answer these questions, then they can kind of screen you to see, maybe we need to refer them to see a counselor. So a lot of clients will come from a referral from the pediatrician or the primary doctor that, refers them out, and people are more likely, regardless of race, actually to come once they've actually went to a doctor. So that's a lot of times I like to work with physicians and such because they would be the good referral source for people to get their help. But it's across all ethnicities. But absolutely, we definitely, African Americans, have to do a better job about getting our mental health themselves.
Oh, you're breaking up, Ms. Douglas. Is someone on the line? Okay, can someone mute their line?
Why you get so much?
Hello? Can someone mute their lines, please?
You saving the box.
Caller, can you mute your line?
I'll do that.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, I'm okay.
They did.
Ms. Davis?
I heard that
okay.
Too. Yeah,
okay. Okay. So, this. So let me ask you this: what are some of the myths? What are some of the myths that you've heard since you've been in this field about mental health?
The biggest one, especially for us African Americans, is black people don't go to counseling. Like you said, that's for crazy people. And I'm not crazy. So that's the biggest one. And right second tagging close to it would be, like if you're religious or, of course, a person of faith, you just believe in Jesus and God will take it away. You don't have faith if you have to go see counseling, because what's wrong with your faith? What's wrong that you sad or depressed? Christians, we don't get depressed. We don't get that.
Exactly.
I even talk when I do speak at churches and such. One of the churches that I spoke at, and I told them I went through all the Bible, and I gave, even Jesus was depressed. Goodness, when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, he sweat blood, you know, and that's actually capillaries bursting because of the depression and the pressure that he felt. And so, you know, Jesus wept, you know, the two scriptures, you know, two words scriptures. He was sad and he was hurt. He saw people suffering, and it affected him. And, you know, Jonah, I mean, there are numerous people we can talk about, you know, that had issues, you know. Peter was aggressive at times, so, you know, he might have had some opposition a week. Or he could have an ADHD, you know, impulsive, as we say. You know, you just react before you actually think things through and processing things. So I think, you know, the myths are that it's a certain culture, one, and that's not true. Two, that you're crazy, you know. 3, kind of, or like I said, well, second was that God will fix it, you know, if you just pray and, you know, that's it. You pray, but you go to the doctor when you get hurt. You know, you still get your checkups and stuff. So it's the same thing. You can still pray, and that's common in my practice. You know, I am a Christian counselor, and so I make no bones about, you know, talking to people if they really want to, you know, to use scriptures, and we do that, you know, as part of the process. But there's some active things you need to do, because being, again, a person of faith does not mean life is not going to affect you. It's definitely going to, and you have to be able to have the tools to deal with the situation and the correct ones, you know. So you just can't Google everything, and that's the solution. You know, Google is good, but also it can be detrimental if you're not using it with wisdom. And so a lot of times, you know, people say, well, I Googled this and I did this. And I say, well, you know what? A lot of times, let's just sit down and do these, you know, questions. Let me ask you some things. And then once we go through those things, we're trained to ask questions more than just your friend would or your mom would. Yeah, they'll ask you some things, but some in-depth things. And also, everybody has secrets, right, Dr. Holden? And
that's right.
You know, they're not comfortable sharing those secrets. But sometimes, you know, we're trained to kind of find out what those are and to be able to see that that's the root of it. Again, you know, maybe you're this way because of what happened to you, you know. There's something I wanted to share, and I would love for people to look it up. It's called the ACE, ACE score, which is the Adverse Childhood Experience. And we found it's just 10 simple questions. You can even look it up online and probably find a version of it. But the 10 questions ask about you under the age of 18 and what happened. And a lot of times when you have these numbers above 5, you have these traumas, you're going to have medical things that happen to you. You're 7 times more likely, you know, to have a heart attack or to have heart disease, you know, to have diabetes. Your life expectancy is going to be less. So we use tools and things to help kind of people to see this happens to everybody. Everybody knows about someone or has experienced some things, you know, that were secretive. And those are things that we kind of talk about. So those are kind of the top few things that I think, you know, people misunderstand.
Oh, you know, while you were speaking, I was listening. 2 things came up I want to piggyback off of and get you to dive in a little more. I'm 100%, I'm an ordained pastor, and I'm 100% with you with the ministers. I think a lot of clergy, we've seen a lot of clergy commit suicide over the last 5 to 10 years, and I just believe even myself that it's almost like you're scared to admit something is wrong, you know, because you don't want nobody to think, okay, you're not spiritual enough, or, you know, who do the clergy go to, you know, without feeling like my business is going to be spread out, or I'm not, like you said, walking in faith, or I'm not praying anymore, without people dumping religion on you more and more. And I think that would have probably prevented if clergy would have felt like, you know what, yes, I'm a man or woman of God, but like you said, I'm human as well. Divorce hurts me just the same as it would hurt you. Losing a child hurts me. You know, it's not like we're superhuman. But do we give the clergy permission to bleed as well? To bleed, you know, when they're cut. Do we give them permission? Because I have seen a rise of suicide amongst clergymen. And also I wanted to just piggyback. It just seemed like you said, this childhood trauma I'm even doing some research on limiting beliefs and having this negative mindset. You know, just going through so I can understand just that hopelessness that I was in, that poverty mindset. So it sounds like a lot of people's walking around from PTSD. You know, it's not just military. Seems like there's a lot of people walking around from this PTSD, and because we wasn't in the military or got injured being a police officer, when we think of PTSD, we don't really think of, I was raped coming up, I was molested, I was abused. So talk a little bit. What do you think about art? Do you feel people are walking around with some PTSD? And just like you said, you do Christian counseling. Your feedback on clergy that has a rise in numbers as well when it comes to suicide.
Right. So absolutely, clergy. I've had some in my office. Pastors, first ladies, and such. And I'm glad. I'm always happy when they do come in. I mean, I give them all the credit and the respect that they deserve because it is sensitive. But I think that it's good that they're finally getting some help before it gets to that level. But society has given the wrong perception, like you said, of people in ministry and leadership. As you said, we all are human. So there's no difference between, them experiencing hurt, because they're human, right? So it doesn't mean because you're a pastor, like you said, if, your child died or you're going through a divorce or anxiety or whatever it is, you're going to feel the same way as non-clergy, So the thing is you feel the pressure and the weight, and also you hear a lot of things. And so a lot of pastors, you need it, call it like a dumping, place to get rid of that. Because if you're hearing, people come to the church like a hospital, they're hurt, they're in pain, they're suffering, they need help. So what do you do with that? And then you have to deal with your own life. You have your own wife or your own husband and your own children, your own family to deal with, your own finances. So I think that if I had it my way, I would require, this is just me, I would require all people that are in any type of leadership or stressful job, police, firemen, ministers, nurses, doctors, I would require them to have a monthly mental health check. Just like, a lot of government agencies, they require you to get the flu shot. They do.
Okay.
If you work for the government, most of the time, they will say on your application when you apply, you must get your yearly flu shot. Why do they do that? Because they want to prevent you from getting the flu, and spreading it to all the coworkers, to the population you work with. So I feel mental health is equally as much, and even more so, because you get the flu, hopefully you get a shot and you're well. But if you're mentally ill, it can cost you your life and others' lives. Because, again, when you get hopeless, you do desperate things.
Ma'am.
And that's why these people are shooting and killing people in mass numbers, because they're desperate and nobody helped them. So absolutely, yes, for ministers. And that's one of the things I do. I actually have it's called Mental Health in Ministry. That's one of the workshops that I do, that I offer to all churches and ministers, that I can come in and everything is confidential. There's no judgment. That's not for me to do. I'm there to help support and aid you so you can be a better servant to your congregation. And so I love working with ministers and people in ministry, and then they get to see the humanity, right? Then see that, wow, okay, they have the same experiences. So that one goes with that one. And then, as you said, the PTSD, we also have something called acute stress trauma. And so that's kind of like what just happened like with the BB gun, the kids that just got shot. So it's right now is relevant, and so they can have trauma, eventually can blow up into full-blown PTSD down the line, but it's something that happened recent. And so we're seeing more cases of that where people are being diagnosed with the acute stress disorder due to a trauma, shooting, or the thought of a shooting, or you can't go to the gas station. They're shooting people there. You can't go to Walmart. They're shooting people there. You can't go to the movie theater. They're shooting people there. You can't cross the street. You can't sit in your house, sometimes, and people are getting shot. So there's this acute stress trauma that a lot of people are experiencing now. And I see a lot of young people that are brought in They're afraid to go to school. They're afraid to leave the house. They're afraid to get in the car. They're afraid. And so we see so many numbers, larger number that increased lately in the last, let's say, since about 2000 and I want to say it's like in the last 5 years, with the mass shootings and such. And that's why, again, we're going back more into the childhood traumas and stuff, because what's happening with the adults, though, is, remember, they never dealt with it. So now they'll get a trigger from something that happens now. They'll see on the TV, there's a shooting, or, all these sexual molestations that, as you see, are coming out by the thousands.
Yes.
Right? Churches and schools. So these were people that were traumatized and victimized many years ago. You're talking decades for some people, but they're just now coming out because now they feel safe because they see it didn't just happen to me. It didn't just happen to her. It happened to hundreds. It happened to thousands. And so a lot more people now are sharing, this happened to me. It wasn't okay. And how do I get help dealing with it?
Wow. It is with this PTSD, this trauma that people are carrying, they're holding, just as a secret. Is there? I just want the people to know it's something. Most times people just can't. You know how some people can, as they say, grow out of it. Do people grow out of this, or they need help? At some point, they're gonna have to need to go back to the root of that thing. So is it something that how they say people can go out of it, or what would be your advice if people say, I'm good, I don't have, do you? And I like what you said, and I love that, and I'm going to post that as well about that once a month health check. And I like, it just sounds got a ring to me, do a mental health check. I'm always doing reflections. I'm always recognizing my emotions. Why do I feel this fear? Why do I feel anxious? I'm always, because I've been doing a lot of self-work in the last 5 years, so I'm able to recognize, you know what, I'm feeling a little down today. Why am I feeling, why I'm starting, so what would be your advice to those, I'm good, I'll be all right, who might feel they can handle this alone, on their own?
So there's something that's real easy. You can look it up online. It's not anything that's too clinically based. It's called PHQ. Those letters, the letter P, the letter H, and the letter Q. It's a 9-question questionnaire, and you can look it up online, Google it, and it'll pop up. And I ask everybody to just take a look at that, answer those questions. And once you answer those 9 questions, add up your score, kind of, and it's a scale of 0 to 3. And so if you add up the questions, if you're seeing a lot of 2s and 3s, like more than 2 3s, then you need to see someone, because it's saying that you have some high symptoms of something going on that could be, a mental health issue. So again, that's called the PHQ 9, and they have that also for a teen. They have an adult version and they have a child adolescent version. So I would just encourage everybody to do that. That's just a check-in, and that's just you doing that on your own. So that's not even involving an outside person. But again, if you have more than 2 3s, then at that point you might want to talk to your. I would recommend that you talk to, your doctor about that, or seek a counselor and just say, I have these questions, and then they can assess you and screen you on a higher level. But that's a easy self-screening kind of a thing that you can use. And second, I just think that, as we already have been just talking about, it's happening every day. So it's becoming more common now for people to come in. A large percentage of my practice is African American. And part of that is, where I live somewhat, but also people come from, around, different areas to see me as well. But they know that they did have something happen, as a child, like you said, and it wasn't dealt with, or they didn't disclose it, or they didn't feel safe to, or whatever. And now people are accepting going to counseling as a safe space, because counseling should be non-judgmental. We're supposed to be neutral and biased. Now, non-biased. Now, we are human. So, we are trained to go in between the lines and dig deep. In fact, one of my things we consent for counseling, I say on my consent forms that it can be painful with counseling because, like you said, if you have PTSD or something, you're going to have triggers. So you don't outgrow it. You muffle it, but it's going to come up at the odd time. You know, maybe a balloon pops, and that, you know, if you're in the military, that's, you know, one of those things. You think it sounds like a gunshot. Or maybe, you know, if you were, like I said, at school and there was a suspected shooting or there was a shooting, you know, anytime you hear an alarm, you know, the police, even with us, I don't even say that. I know a child who the parent was telling me that the police pulled them over for something, you know, minor. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
You know, the light was out or they didn't signal or something. And the child just screamed, "Don't shoot me, don't shoot me," you know, because of all these killing of black people. And the child just screamed and hollered, you know, and I think she's about 5 or 6. The police was like, "Go ahead." You know, just
wow.
But the sad thing is this little 5 or 6-year-old child already is afraid of her life, you know, in fear for her life. And so we really, point of, you know, tips is with parents especially, we have to talk to our kids. We have to monitor what they see. We have to have discussions with them when they see something or when something goes on and we hear about something because they're going to get the wrong message from somebody or they're going to hear it and not understand it or they'll think we're afraid to talk about it so they don't say anything about it and they internalize that and then they become anxious and fearful. So we have to have those conversations. And with PTSD, no, you don't outgrow it. But if you don't do, it's going to manifest in one way. You're going to be drinking or, you know, on drugs, or you're going to be abusive, you know, you're going to be withdrawn, You're going to be isolated. So it's going to come out. It's just, you know, a matter of how it manifests.
Now, so the opposite side of, you know, of people just, you know, going through the effect of just the effects of being traumatized by something that happened in their lives, some people do need medication. So talk to us about those, you know, it's okay if you do have to be on medication that's going to help with bipolar or, you know, some other disorder. Don't feel like I'm not taking that medicine, I'm not crazy, when in fact there are some people that do, you know, medication is needed.
Oh, absolutely. So now I will say that you have to do screening well. When you find your provider that's going to see you, let's just go through the different levels of mental health. So you have a psychiatrist. They're a medical doctor, but their medical degree is in psychiatry. So what that means is that they did additional training on mental health, and so they give prescriptions. That's what their job is. They'll sit down and they say, okay, you know, you got bipolar. Okay, here, I'm going to give you this medication. Okay, you got ADHD. Okay, let me give you this type of medicine. Well, they screen, you know. So you want to do your homework and see, and even ask them, you know, can I do this without medication? Certain things are neurological. So there are neuropsychologists that deal with the brain, you know, functioning. If your brain functioning is off, you just can't sit there and talk me through it, you know, because there are chemical imbalances. And so, again, psychiatrists and neuropsychologists can actually go in and do testing so you can see, is it brain-based versus behavioral-based. So things that are brain-based and chemically-based are going to need some type of medication to get them regulated. So the problem, like with, just as you said, bipolar, a lot of times, and bipolar, you know, bi means two. So, again, that means you have highs and lows. So there's sometimes you're what we call manic, which means, you know, I don't know if you ever met or know someone that is in that, they're fast. Now, I talk fast, but I slow down a little bit. But just think of an Energizer bunny. You know, they never stop. Just, you know, all the time. They can go without sleep. They can go without eating. You know, they're just like I said, they have that little engine in them, like the Energizer bunny, and they can do that for 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 days. You know, 12. Your body can't go for 12 days without sleep, so then you're gonna clash. You know, and so then you get into that depression, where now you can't move. You know, you can barely breathe. You know, sometimes it can even hurt your body physically, and a lot of times we don't talk about it. You can actually physically have pains in your body from, you know, depression, and so someone like that, that's a chemical imbalance. And counseling will help, but medication is going to be required for that. Because, again, you have to get those neurotransmitters, in alignment. So without getting too technical or whatever, we just have serotonin is a good, happy hormone that we all have. And so if it's down and low, then you need more of that put in so it can push you and keep you up, dopamine, those kinds of things. But if they're low, then you're going to need, that's what medication does. It increases those neurotransmitters that are positive and that help you with mood regulation and with self-control, impulse control, and things of that nature. So I do think that, again, you need to be careful when you're screening. Don't, some people just say, I need some medicine. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I am not at a level that I can do that. I refer people out for that. I deal with the thought processes because I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, which means I deal with, again, cognitions, the thoughts, and then the behaviors and the emotions. Those are the things I deal with. So I don't personally do medication, but there are clients of mine that come in because once you get the medication, you still have to have a behavior change, so you can't go. I mean, I have people, honestly, they go, if you're manic, it'll be like a lady who like you like to shop. Okay, so I like shoes. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But if I go out and take my whole check and spend it all and buy shoes and now I can't pay my mortgage, that's a problem, But I might be manic then, something is not right. I have some irrational thinking that's, I'm choosing to do that. So some of it can be behavioral, and again, some of it can be chemical. So that's why you use both counseling and medication if needed. But again, you really have to be screened to see if you needed medication. And again, was it a neurological thing versus, behavioral?
Well, you said something. I remember one of my exes, and this is the guy was so up, and it was almost like a Mr. What they call it, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I mean, as quick as you can blink an eye, I'm like, what just happened to you? You up, my man? I'm like, boy, you like he's like, back in the day, I think they did say bipolar. I said, you might be, because I mean, the change was so erratic. I mean, it was one minute you're nice, next minute you're angry, and it was, and so I think, I used to tell maybe you need to go back and say it's okay. I'm here. I won't leave. I won't leave you. I said, but I think you need to get that. That's a little too much. That mood disorder. I mean, So I just think the stigma of someone going to see a doctor or coming to grips. You know what? I do have this problem. And so I'm just glad we're having this conversation. I mean, it just light the load. On what probably people have these mispreconceptions about mental health. I'm learning a lot, just this conversation alone. And so, like I said, but I do. What would be your recommendations? Because I do a weekly check, and I guess for me, as you've interviewed me, so you heard my story. I think for me, I've learned how to identify when something is wrong. And if I'm just feeling like, oh, I'm not feeling this, I'm feeling a little depressed, but I've learned how to work through that, I just don't learn it myself, but I will go to counseling. So if anybody online, I don't have no problem going to a counselor. So do you recommend not only just once a month mental health check with a professional, but is that something on a weekly basis that someone can do, just a personal check they're doing with themselves, so it won't build up? You know how you don't have to wait for that grandiose moment when everything came to a boiling point. What can someone do on a more personal basis to really be in tune with themselves? And that's why my specialty is personal development, because I've learned how to really learn myself and be in tune so I can catch stuff early. But from a professional, from someone in the mental health part side of it, what would you suggest that someone can do more on an intimate base with themselves so they don't have to wait till once a month come around, but they can kind of start learning themselves in that way? Hello? Hello, Ms. Davis? Ms. Davis? Okay, well, Ms. Davis, you probably either maybe they can hit the mute. Ms. Davis, did you hit the mute button? Well, we're going to see, do we have a caller on the line while Ms. Davis get that together? Is there a caller on the line that wants to make a comment or add ask a question? Caller, are you there?
Okay, this is Monica. I think somehow I accidentally hung up by mistake.
Okay, hold on, Ms. Davis. Let me make sure. Caller, is there a caller that want to ask Ms. Davis a question or make a comment? Okay, so you didn't hear I guess you didn't hear the question I just asked. Ms. Davis, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I was asked. What I've learned how to do is, I love the point that you said. Once a month, go to get a mental health check. Just where you have somebody that you already maybe got a relationship with a counselor, and you check in. But personally, what I do, I try to do a reflection once a week, maybe at the end of a day, to check in with my feelings and emotions. So is there anything that you can add that people don't have to wait till you get to a boiling point? You don't have to wait till what would you say someone can start doing today that they can become more in tune with themselves so they can know, what, something's not right.
So I think that that is good, and I'm so glad that you do that. I think more and more people should do that. If you have a reference base that can help you, that's good. And so what I suggest that people do is, one, a lot of times, we're not always the best judge of ourselves, is that you have an accountability person, someone you check in with. And usually if they're really close enough to you, they can tell something's off. They may not know what it is, but they know something's off. So I would first just recommend you have someone outside of yourself, even if it's just like a friend, but a close one, someone that's wise, not just a yes person, but someone that's like, I heard a tone. What's going on? You missed this event. That's not like you to miss an event, or, I called you, I text you, and, 3 days later, nothing back. That's not normal. So you should have a person of accountability that can help you. I think that everybody needs help and support. Even Jesus had the 12, apostles with him. One of them wasn't no good, but, so you got to scream. You got to scream. But, we all need help, right? So I think that having a person that is accountability check-in, I have that myself with people that I check in, because it's important. And, as we kind of talked about with ministers, you got to get someone to check you as well, even if you're in a leadership position. And then, like I mentioned earlier, if you just go online and look at that PHQ, that's something everybody can do right now. You just look that up, Google that. It'll pop up, answer those questions. Again, if you have more than 2 3s, then at that point you need to see somebody, because that's saying that there's an indication, there's a sign that something is wrong, something is off balance and off track. And then journaling is always good. Of course, a lot of people do that. I love years ago, when Oprah was talking about the journal gratitude and all that. I mean, way before she even said that, people been journaling, so I don't give her just the credit. But, since she's a big name, a lot of people, they listen to Oprah. So a lot of people start journaling. And that's good. That's healthy. But, again, you want to have somebody, you got to get rid of it, because if you don't, we didn't talk about it, but mental illness is going to also manifest in your body. I did reference that it can hurt, but you're going to have sickness, because mental illness, stress in your body is going to come out. And so, because the body is not made to handle it. And so, a lot of times people get illnesses because of not treating mental health issues. And so that's another whole show. I know we don't have time for that, but, you know what?
I was just about to, that was going to be my next something, just something to ask you. So what are some of the illnesses that you have seen, and maybe through counseling you've seen people say, I feel better, that, that is associated with untreated mental illness?
Right. Well, I was just thinking about someone I saw today. I was thinking, and migraines was something that's very common. Because if you're under high levels of stress and pressure, then, you may suffer from migraines. And we're not talking just adults. We're talking teenagers. We're talking I've seen them as little as 11 having migraines where they can't go to school. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, okay, we got to get this under control here. You know, if you're that young and you're having migraines, but that's a common one. You can have a lot of stomach issues, you know, gestational issues, you know, because the gut is, you know, our core. And so, you know, everything that affects the core is going to manifest. So, again, if you're having a lot of gastrointestinal issues, that could be, you know, a symptom of some things going on with you mentally. You can have, I've seen rashes and hives. This is a funny, quick story, but it was just when I was in grad school and I had a practicum I had to do, and me and my supervisor weren't getting along so well because it's just a long story, but she was just on me, and I broke out with hives, and I was like, what in the world? Why am I itching and red? It was the stress that I was under this training, trying to get my degree. And so, you know, a lot of people that are under pressure, it's going to come out like that. So, again, it could be hives, you know, rashes, you know, cold, you know, congestion, all of those things, because, again, the body has got to push out, because you're talking, again, about chemicals and neurotransmitters and things going on in your body, and the body's like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on? And it wants to stay alive. We have that fight to flight or freeze, you know, auto mechanisms in our body. So to keep you alive, then your resistance may go down. So now you get a cold, or you get an infection, or again you get a migraine headache, or you get, you know, diarrhea, or, you know, constipation, or you throw up, you know, you have an acid reflux. You know, a lot of those things, honestly, and I'm not saying they are just, but a lot of those things are exacerbated by mental illness not being dealt with.
Wow. If you could, one again, just give us you mentioned two tests, the ACE score and the pH2. Are these the same, similar tests, or they're different? And if they're different, how and why?
Okay, so the ACE is totally different. That is the adverse child experiences. So these are 10 questions that they will ask. This is about what happened to you prior to 18. So it asks about abuse, trauma, divorce, depression in the family. Even if someone went to prison, it asks about that. It talks about if you feel you weren't loved, neglect, abuse. That's what the ACE does, because that's something that we use, again, to see why you could possibly be the way that you are as an adult. A lot of people have personality disorders, and a lot of times you can go back in that ACE and you'll see, or you see, okay, my dad drank, my uncle drank, my grandfather drank, so I drink, you know, and so you kind of go back.
Okay.
That's a reference base. My mother was abused. She was in unhealthy relationships. I grew up. Now I'm dating somebody in unhealthy, and it's the third or the fourth, or, you know, continued, you know, pattern. And so we talk about generational curses and such. So the ACE will kind of identify those things. Now the PHQ is just 9 questions that ask more about day-to-day right now in the last, you know, week, 2 weeks.
Okay.
What have you experienced? So that's a more current thing. So today or in the last 2 weeks, have you felt lack of desire? Have you felt fatigue? Have you felt hopeless? Have you had loss of appetite? You know, things that affect you more now. And that one, again, is going to be a trigger for you when you have more than, you know, 2 threes, to go ahead and get somebody to assess and see what kind of assistance you may need.
Wow, I tell you, but first, before I go, is there any callers on the line that want to ask Ms. Douglas? You know, I since you both last, I don't know why I got Ms. Davis a question. So, is there someone on the line that want to ask a question? You know, to get clarification. She's doing an awesome job. So, to me, she's answered some questions. But if you want to ask a question, you're more than free to go ahead and do so. Or if you just want to make a comment. So, is there a caller that wants to have something to say? Don't be shy, caller. Come on. If you have a question, this is good. This is very informative. And Ms. David, she's on it answering these questions. I'm hitting her back to back with them as much as I can think in my limited knowledge of this field here. So, Ms. David, give us information. How could people contact you? How could they, if they want you to come and speak, or matter of fact, you have a book. You're author. Is that correct?
Yes, I actually have several books, and the new one launching. So my first book is called God Made Me Beautiful, but I Didn't Know It. It's about inner beauty and self-esteem. It talks about 16 characteristics of beauty, and the fruit of the Spirit are part of the, 9 of the 16 characteristics I talk about. I really, truly believe that God made us good, and a lot of us don't know it. I didn't know it. I didn't know that beauty is not the face, but it's, the heart, the character issues. And so I talk about that in my book. It's on Amazon, or it's on my website, carescounseling.com. That's also how you can reach me, CARES, CARES, counseling.com. I also, again, now specialize with, children and parents and families. So that's my two loves. One is women who've been hurt or been victimized because, dealing with low self-esteem. That was my story. That I'm a best-selling co-author of a book, The Voices Behind Mental Illness. That just came out with a group of ladies, and it highlights, again, mental illness and the destigmatization of that. My parenting booklet, it is a little real, 26 pages, I think, just 20 bullets. It's 20 tips for effective parenting in the 21st century, because parenting is different now than when you and I grew up, Dr. Holden. We didn't have social media. We didn't have cell phones. Look, you see, and this is no exaggeration, you see a baby. If you're a year old, the baby has a tablet. The baby's on there, doing this and that and the other. The baby's got YouTube, We didn't have cyberbullying because there was no cyber to have, It was just one-on-one, So there are a lot of things that, words do hurt. We were tough then, but nowadays, children, what your words say today are out there indefinitely, right? Because of social media. What you see and do today is somebody's going to record it, somebody's going to see it, and somebody's going to post it. So just give a side note here. I tell everybody, don't put anything out there, because if you do, it's there. There's you put a picture out there, it's just know that everybody in the world can see it. You can't trust. Young people, they have trust that's ridiculous. It's a blind trust, and that's not even trust. You give kids your passwords, and now you broke up with the person, and now they got these pictures of you, and now they've searched them all around the school and the world and everywhere else. So I tell people, keep your stuff private. Don't do anything, even as adults, keep your stuff private, because if you put it out there, then someone can access it. So, there's so many things that we just need to really think about, with mental health. And, again, even with social media. But I am, again, available. Hey, internationally, call me. I would love to come. I travel. I have no problem doing that. I like to do that. I can be reached at 404-578-7629, or look me up. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Monica Douglas Davis. And I do use both names because there's some Monica Douglases and there's some Monica Davises. But I haven't found another Monica Douglas Davis yet. And I'd be happy to talk to people. I really would be. So thank you, Dr. Holden.
I tell you guys, hit Miss Douglas up there. Girl, I tell these names. I don't know why I'm going to call you either one, Douglas or David, but it's all good. Miss Davis got some powerful information. But I also want to let you all know about just give you another extra reference to someone who's fighting this fight. Vanessa Anderson Abram. Oh my goodness, she's also on this trail to fight for this mental health advocacy awareness. She's in 2018 she started the SDPPP, which is it provides suicide prevention and recovery information for she's did it already for more than 1,800 people. In addition, the organization trains an average of 200 people each month in workshops, mentors, and counsels 100 people per month, and has approximately 500 documented cases of suicide intervention.
You've been listening to Breaking Chains with the P31 women on YAT Radio. Tune in next week, same time.
Go to our website,
blogtalkradio.com/YAT Radio, or call in 858-357-9137. It's Breaking Chains, YAT Radio, where we leave a mark that can't be erased by breaking the chains of silence.